Southern shame, call it by name. Southern shame, pull out of pain. Southern shame, call it by name.
Welcome to the second episode of Dark Work, Devalued and Unprotected, unlocking stories that have been held hostage. I am Jaribu Hill, Executive Director and founder of the Mississippi Workers Center for Human Rights, welcoming you to the podcast. I want to thank my co-host, Latasha Palmer, who is also the program manager of the Mississippi Workers Center. And we are really in celebration mode. We're getting ready to mark our 27th annual Workers' Memorial Day. And Workers' Memorial Day is a tribute for and to those workers who died while trying to make a living. It is celebrated every year across this country and in Canada and other parts of the world. Workers who have lost their lives while trying to make a living have been remembered on April 28th. To mark the occasion this year, we will be on the Capitol steps on Saturday, April 25th. And we are so excited about our show today, and we have some surprises for you at the end to tell you how you can catch this powerhouse of a speaker that's coming to you today, how you can also catch her again on Saturday, April 25th. So I want to thank you all for tuning in, and please spread the word, share the link, visit our website, www.msworkrights.org, where you can listen to episode number 1 as well. Dark Work, Devalued and Unprotected, had its beginnings in the bottom of rickety boats, where the strange and barely breathing human cargo was bound by sweat, blood, and circumstance. The block of wood was the way station, where flesh, sold as property, stood to be cataloged into the free labor auction block industry. Against this history of suffering and terror, we find ourselves today looking at modern-day versions of some of the same types of forms of oppression and exploitation that our ancestors suffered so many years ago, where they engaged in back-breaking toil. Dark-skinned people who harvest blood crops without shares, where strange fruit bore children to breed for cash crops. Here is where their descendants will tell of modern-day vestiges of dark work, of Jim Crow assignments, of modern-day acts of resistance and triumph. A word about our co-host, Latasha Palmer. Latasha is the proud graduate of the historically Black college, Mississippi Delta Community College, and then going on to Delta State to get her degree. She also comes out of the pharmacy industry, where she was a pharmacy tech, and now she comes to us as our dynamic program officer who hails from Leland, Mississippi. It is my privilege to introduce our co-host, Latasha Palmer, who will guide us through this amazing conversation with Miss Hazel Whiting.
Thank you, Jaribu, for such an awesome intro. Thank you. I'm so honored to be given this opportunity to be in the presence of such greatness, Miss Hazel. My brothers and sisters and others, we have a guest that will be able to give you a personal insight of what the statement, "No one should have to die to make a living," really means. Nissan, built with Southern pride, where workers' rights are denied. Nissan, built with Southern pride, where demanding a union is a crime. Nissan, built with Southern pride, where workers build wealth for the owners. Southern pride, Southern shame, called Derrick Whiting by name. We know September the 21st, 2015 was the day when Derrick lost his life while trying to make a living on the Nissan plant floor without any medical assistance. Ms. Whiting, I'm going to read a statement from social media that was made by you. Derrick Whiting reported to work on Monday, September the 21st, 2015, and died at Nissan before transported to Madison River Oaks Hospital. Nissan is marketing themselves as a good employer for the community by distributing the fan pictured to the African American churches. Until Nissan has regard for human life, I would never believe that they are good for the community. I am still waiting on a sympathy card or letter from Nissan corporate office where my son died. So you tell me, how is it that they can print the slogan, "Together we rise," on these church fans and distribute them at the church that I attend to disturb my peace while trying to serve the Lord? Miss Whiting, thank you so much for joining us today. And we will never stop saying Derrick Whiting's name. We would never stop saying his name. I can introduce you, but who can introduce themselves better than their own selves, right? So, Ms. Whiting, could you please tell us a little bit about yourself?
I grew up on my grandfather's farm. So, in growing up on my grandfather's farm, I was sheltered from a lot of the things that other African Americans, Black people had to endure. We were fortunate, but I didn't realize it until I got older, that we were fortunate that we was on my granddaddy's farm, that we didn't have to be talked down to, disrespected, told that if we were sharecroppers, that you almost made enough to pay off your debt to the people that you were being a sharecropper to. We didn't have that situation, so I was very sheltered, and I did not know about a lot of the things that were going on in the world. I knew about the civil rights movement because my father participated in the marches. But as for all the things that were going on behind the scenes when Black people went to work on the white man's farm, the Black woman going to work in the white woman's house to be their maid. Unfortunately, I did not know that as a Black woman that's going to the white house, that you had to enter the back door to come in, cook for them, clean for them, to take care of their children. And so, because you was considered beneath being able to enter in the front door.
Thank you so much for that introductory, Miss Hazel. Miss Hazel, as we get into the story, could you please share with our listening audience Derrick's story, your journey, your strong voice pushing through the pain of such an unthinkable loss?
Okay, Derrick's story, because I have a college degree, I wanted both of my children to go and obtain their college degree, because statistics show that if you have a college education, then you make far more money and you can obtain much better jobs. I never wanted to work in what I call a factory. I call Nissan a factory. Anything that you're manufacturing a product in, that's called a factory to me. Because when I was growing up, people always talked about that's the worst place you can work is in the factory. But I did not fully understand working in the factory because I never worked in one. But when Derrick, of course, had always told me, even when Nissan first came to Madison County, that, oh no, I don't want to work at Nissan. And I couldn't understand that because, of course, the hype in the community was that Nissan is one of the best employers that's coming to town. They're going to pay more than other manufacturers. They're going to pay more than most of the companies in Madison and the metro area. But once they got here, that was the hype when they first, the word got out that Nissan was coming to Canton. But once they got here, then they flipped the script. The big salaries that had been advertised became lower because they found out that in Mississippi, the people will be glad to get $10 an hour, $9, $12 an hour, because a lot of them are making minimum wage or barely above minimum wage if they only have a high school diploma. And so Derrick had a high school diploma. He also had 1 year of college. But he had gotten in the position, he had lost his job, and he needed a job. So his friends were telling him, well, Nissan is hiring. So he applied. And then they told him, you will get the job at Nissan after they come back from their 2-week shutdown. At that time, they was having a shutdown. I don't know if they're still doing that. So as they told him, he did get hired on through a temp agency and eventually became a Nissan employee in 2015, in the spring of 2015, before he passed away. But once he went to work there, he kept stating to me, Mama, I've got to find something else to do. I can't continue to work at Nissan. And so, he would continually say that, but because I've never worked in a factory environment, I guess I didn't fully understand what he was trying to convey to me. And then the Saturday before he passed away, when he returned to work on that Sunday night, Monday morning, that Saturday, his son had a game. And so I went to his game. It was held at Madison Central School. It was a community. And so he said to me, I wanted to work overtime this weekend, but my supervisor wouldn't let me. And so I said, well, what was that about? And he kind of humped his shoulders and said he didn't know. But Derrick was, in a lot of ways, like his parents. We would speak up if we saw something wasn't right. And heard to, unfortunately, get him to cower down, is what I call it, to try to get you to cower down where you won't say what need to be said.
Okay, Ms. Hazel, tell us about that day.
I can't remember now what it was. A Monday night. I think it was Monday night. He went to work. His son had a game, so he took his son to his game, and it was in Madison County. He took him to the game. Then he went on to work. And so when he got to work, the supervisor said, well, it was unusual for Derrick to come in early, meaning that he got there maybe about 30 minutes before time to go to work. And a lot of times, what I understand, he would maybe sit out there in his vehicle. He wouldn't come in until it was time to clock in, right at time to clock in. But that day he came in, and when he came in, he put his head down on the table. I guess it was in the break room where they were sitting at. And so he sat in there until, and different ones had different stories, of course. Some said he didn't feel good. Others said that so he didn't feel good, but he went on to work, apparently. He was at work. He intended to work his shift. So then after that, he went on to work. When he got on the line to work, he was a quality person, so he would have to get inside of the car on one side, is my understanding, do the quality check, and then um, he would have to bend over, reach in the trunk, and do the quality check in the trunk area. So as the cars would come down the line, they would stop for the quality check at his post. So as the last car that he did the quality check on was moving away, one of his co-workers, I think his name, I don't know that it's his real name, but they called him Jack. He said he noticed that Derrick was falling backwards. So as he went to falling backwards, he said, the first thought that came into my mind, he's just playing around. Then the next fleeting thought was that no, nobody can do that, pretend they're falling backwards, because they can't catch themselves. So at that moment, when when his mind got clear, he hit the stop button because another car was coming for him to do his quality check on, but it would maybe hit Derrick, when he failed. So they had a stop that he could hit. He stopped the line that Derrick was on, is my understanding, but the lines on either side kept working. And so at that point, once he hit the concrete, I would assume that's what the plant floor is, concrete, because I've never been in there, because they never allowed me the opportunity to go see where my son passed away. That just denying you things that are free. It wasn't going to cost them anything to let me go in there and see where my son laid and died. But they did not allow that. So at that point, the workers, the employees, they said the medical team came, and then I said, what medical team? And then that's when I found out they were calling his fellow employees the medical team. The fellow employees were doing everything they could to save Derrick's life. They started doing CPR, doing whatever they could. They tried to summon help with the supervisors, tried to summon help. Was told, the employees said 911 need to be called. Of course, then they was asking, can I call 911? And the answer to them was a definitive no. You cannot call 911. You cannot move his body. They asked, can we pick him up and take him to the clinic, because it was taking so long for the clinic staff to come on the ambulance to get to Derrick to see what was going on. The employees recognized that there was a major medical emergency going on, but they could not get the people that were supervisors on up to understand this is a major medical emergency. And so it maybe took, what I'm understanding, maybe about 30 minutes for the clinic staff to arrive on the ambulance to start trying to administer care to Derrick. At that point, Derrick did not have a pulse. Derrick was in sudden cardiac arrest. And when you're in sudden cardiac arrest, every second counts. So at that point, we were told, my family was told, the clinic staff started trying to do not CPR. They brought the defibrillator with them. And so of course they said they defibrillated Derrick to try to save his life, but that was not true either. I found out later, because of course the defibrillator, the word on the street was that the battery was down in the defibrillator. So they couldn't save Derrick's life or anybody else's life for that matter, because when you work in a medical clinic, you are required to do checks on that defibrillator. and you got to do regular checks on the defibrillator on a regular basis to make sure it's ready to go when you have that once in a lifetime event that may occur where a person goes into sudden cardiac arrest. It's not a situation that occurs often, and especially with a man that's 37 years old. Derrick was 37 years old, so when he fell, the supervisors were asking, do anybody know whether he had health problems? They was trying to find out information that the employees were not privy to, unless they were real close friends to Derrick. And so it is that maybe it was almost an hour had elapsed before Derrick was transferred out of that plant. Once the external ambulance service, EMTs, got to Derrick, they transported him out of the Nissan plant on the pretense that Derrick was still alive. Derrick was not alive. I know, any medical doctor know, any nurse know, any nurse assistant, any level of medical staff knows that you cannot survive sudden cardiac arrest after an hour done elapsed. For every 10 minutes, every minute that passes, 10% of your chance of survival elapses. So after 10 minutes, you are considered 100% chance of not surviving when you're in sudden cardiac arrest. I looked into it every which way I could, but they continued to state that Derrick was alive when he left that plant, which was not true.
And Miss Hazel, you stated that it took the emergency assistance to come. It took them 30 minutes to an hour to make it to your son.
Okay, there were two levels. There is the level that's in the plant. Nissan has a clinic on site. The clinic that was on site was staffed by a nurse practitioner and a nurse, is my understanding. These two people are not trained to operate as emergency medical technicians, EMTs. They are trained to see patients. But Nissan was doubling them up to work not only the clinic, but to also serve as EMTs to get on the ambulance and go out to the floor if there was a medical emergency. So the first level was that those two people in the clinic got on the ambulance. The driver got lost trying to find where he needed to go, and it took him about 30 minutes to get to Derrick. The 911 call went out a lot later from what they call Central Security. That Central Security is the only people, they are the only people that are allowed to call 911 to come to Nissan for a major medical emergency. So after the first step took place, and I guess the nurse practitioner and the nurse got there and they couldn't do anything for Derrick, then I guess at that point they put the call out to 911, which is the community EMT service. Now, as to whether Nissan pays to have any EMTs in the county, I do not know. But they are calling the same 911 that I call from my house, you call from your house in Madison County to come to Nissan when there is a major medical emergency, ciphering off the community resources. And yes, it took them, I can't say when the EMTs from external AMR got there. I do have the data because I obtained my son's medical records. and don't have those in front of me. But they got there, they documented that they had been called prior to the official call going out. And based on that unofficial call by employees, they came to Nissan's gate. When they got there, one of Derrick's co-worker, I don't know his name, he said, I could not stomach what I was seeing go on with Derrick. So I went outside. So he went outside, and when he went outside, he witnessed the ambulance at the gate, and that there was conversation going on with the security employee at the gate. So at that point, he said he ran out there and he told the security employee, oh, you need to let them in. There's a man down in the plant. We really do need the ambulance. He stated to the employee, I cannot let them in because I have not gotten a call from Central Security, his bosses. So that caused a further delay. And of course, it is true because at least the AMR ambulance staff had the decency to document it in the medical record that I obtained from the hospital.
So, Ms. Hazel, listening to your story and listening to you tell your story about your son, I see where there were so many chances and opportunities for your son's life to be saved because his co-workers were trying to help him. They were trying to put him in his car and take him to another location. So what were you told by the supervisors?
I was told by the supervisors, we asked that we get a call, which we did the next day. And me and my daughter, and I don't know whether my husband was on the call or not because my husband was already on disability. So me and Leslie talked to them on the call and we recorded the call. And they said to us they did everything in their power to save Derrick's life. With the policies and procedures that they have in place, nobody could have survived that incident. I have never worked at a place where I have been told you are never to call 911. Only this department or that department can call 911.
You said that they would never allow you in the plant, even after your son passed away. They wouldn't allow you in the plant to even see where your son lay and passed away.
No. The only place they would let you come was to they have like a foyer area. You could come to that foyer area and then somebody would come out there and talk to you, and that was it.
So after you finding out all of this information that you found out, Ms. Hazel, what was your next step?
Well, my next step was this. Derrick died that Monday night. But by the time he got to the hospital, it was, I think, Tuesday morning. It was the 22nd of September. So, of course, his death was not called at Nissan where it should have been called. So his death was called by the doctor at the hospital. So the next step was that on that Tuesday morning, my daughter and my husband had driven to the hospital separately. So we left his vehicle there. His vehicle stayed at the hospital. So I had to take him to get his vehicle the next morning. So after I dropped him off to get his vehicle, as soon as I got ready to leave the hospital, I got a phone call. I mean, to the fact that you need to know what all went on out there at Nissan before, when Derrick fell out, when he fell out, what went on. And employees was saying that Derrick had gone to the clinic, which was that was denied by the company that he ever went to the clinic on site. To this day, I don't know whether he ever went to the clinic, but they stated Derrick was never seen at the clinic, not that night or any night. He had never been seen at the clinic on site. And that, but I, of course, obtained the medical record from that night. And of course, the medical record on that night stated on there that the nurse practitioner that saw him that night, that came out there to work on him, put on the record that he was a diabetic. And I said, well, how can you get a person's medical history if you've never seen them?
Mm.
So, you know, which the employee said they were asking staff out there, did Derrick have any medical problems? So I don't know whether they got it from some of the employees that were out there on site, or whether, you know, he had been seen at the clinic. But the bottom line is this: Derrick was, to my knowledge, not a diabetic and not on medication for diabetes. We do have a family history of diabetes in my family, which my latest aunt that passed last year, she was a diabetic. She lived to 97 and a half. So that doesn't define that you will die from diabetes because you have diabetes. But at the point that the clinic arrived to take care of Derrick, they were serving as EMTs. And you know, when EMTs arrive on site, they start assessing the patient, because you have no way of knowing what's wrong with him. But the staff there had evaluated him, that were non-medical staff, and told him he does not have a pulse. And just about anybody can check for a pulse, you know. So it was, he did not have a pulse. But the things that were in the record, like saying that he was a diabetic, you know, Derrick never woke up. He was dead at Nissan. She did not get any information from him, because Derrick, once he passed out, he was in sudden cardiac arrest. She could not get any information from him. So where did you get the information you put in his record?
Ms. Hazel, as a mother, have you received the information that you need to know what happened to your child?
The information that I received, the correct information, I believe came from the street committee, because these were people that worked right along beside Derrick. So what they said, I take as the absolute 100% truth, that they were the ones that did everything in their power to save Derrick's life, not the company, because of the policies and procedures that they have in place. Nobody could survive a major medical emergency at Nissan. And one of the things I prayed and I asked was that they change their policies and procedure. They should have regard for human life above all else. Above everything else, you should put nothing above human life.
I definitely agree, Miss Hazel.
Because what harm will calling 911 do? If they get there and they're not needed, then they just turn around and go back. That's what has happened at my house before, when I have had to call the EMTs 911 for my mom. If they got here and they worked on her and she refused to go to the hospital, then they went about their normal day. They left. So it was not going to cause any harm to anyone anybody by calling 911, whether it was the company, whether it's the employees. It doesn't matter who dials that 911 because it's not going to do any harm for that ambulance to come there, work on the person, and then the person becomes okay and do not have to travel to the hospital.
Right.
I've been through those scenarios.
Right. Ms. Hazel, were there any repercussions for the Nissan company after the death of your son?
Well, I would say no. I would say no. Derrick's case fell under workers' comp because Derrick was an employee of Nissan. And so therefore, when it fell under workers' comp, the state of Mississippi has a limit on what workers' comp will pay out, the maximum that they will pay out whether you are dead or alive. It's
Workers'
the same
comp.
amount. Yes.
Wow.
And it's
450 weeks.
Whatever the maximum is, whether you're alive or dead, it's the same amount. And it goes up a little each year. But I think at the time Derrick died, it was something like $203,000. That's what Mississippi puts as the value of a person's life or becoming totally disabled. That's the value they put on a life or a total disability. That is the maximum anybody can get from disability.
Wow, Miss Hazel, your story. Miss Hazel, how do you find the strength to tell your son's story when asked about it? How are you able to explain what happened to your son? Where do you get that strength from?
I get that strength from being a Christian. I have been a Christian ever since before I started grade school. I became a Christian because my mom would read the Bible. And when she would she would reading it out loud, I guess, to us. And then when she read the passage about, I think it was like John 3:16, that for God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever shall believe in him shall not perish but have everlasting life. That if you confess with your mouth and believe in your heart, then you shall be saved. That's paraphrased, of course, it's not verbatim. But ever since I was a small child, probably 4 or 5 years old, I became a Christian. But of course, I didn't join the church until what you call it, till morning bench time. They sent you to the morning bench back then. You couldn't just go and join the church like people do now.
Right. I remember the morning bench. I remember.
So that's where my strength came from.
Awesome. Well, Ms. Hazel, I read a quote that you did on the social media, and I want you to tell the audience a little bit about those fans that they were handing out.
Well, that's been over 10 years ago. I wish I could look at one of them again, but they was distributed them throughout, for not just Madison County, throughout the state, is what I understand, to let everybody know what a wonderful employer they were, that we're so great. And I'm sure you saw the billboards on the interstate when you're heading down the interstate toward Nissan, how it's such a fabulous place to work. And those fans that were being distributed was spreading the word. If you need a good job, basically you come to Nissan, try to get hired on at Nissan. So that's what it was doing, spreading the word of how great of employer they were, that we're wonderful. So they were tooting their own horn. But after Derrick died, I knew that was just not true. If I cannot dial 911 for my coworker, I can't dial 911, then I do not need to be up in Nissan working. But there were so many people that kicked against what I said. They said, oh, I have a high school diploma and I can't go nowhere else and make the kind of money I make at Nissan. Nissan was working them people to death. They were not just getting a 40-hour-a-week check. They were working all this overtime. And that's why it looked like they were making a whole lot of money. And that's why people would say, we make more than teachers make. But they don't have the benefits that the teachers in Mississippi have. They didn't have a pension like the teachers do in Mississippi. They were just looking at the check that they brought home. When they got their paycheck, unfortunately, most of them didn't have a clue that working 60 hours a week or more, whatever amount of hours they could work, that is harmful to your body for you to have to work all of those hours.
Miss Hazel, I have one more question for you. What advice would you give the younger generation who's entering into the workforce? What would you tell them?
I would tell them that you need to know your rights. You need to fight for your rights. You need to take a stand. And you need to look at more than the dollar. So many of them say it. But I make more than I ever made before in my life. It's so sad that a lot of the young people place more value on a dollar than on their own personal health, not knowing. They don't know. Find out when you work at a place, what is the procedure? If I get sick, what is going to happen? Because like with Derrick, they didn't even have a contact person to contact. They were out there asking the employees, do y'all know Derrick people? Do y'all know how to get into contact with his family? They told me it's not a requirement for them to have an emergency contact on file. He didn't put one there. And it's not required for him to have one on file. I've never worked at a place where you were not required to have an emergency contact on file. So they had to get the information the best way they could on how to contact Miss Whiting. And Miss Whiting was contacted prior to the official contact by his supervisor because the word was already on the street. I was working in the Delta during that time, staying in Cleveland, Mississippi during the week, and I got a phone call. Phone call came to my house in Cleveland to let me know that your son is unresponsive at Nissan. The supervisor did not call me until after the ambulance had left Nissan site, approximately an hour later after Derrick fell. That's when they called me. But I already had the word. I was putting my stuff in my suitcase and I was getting ready to hit the road when the supervisor called me and told me he was on the way to the hospital, like he was still alive, and he was not. And all of them participated in it. The ambulance people participated in it. Everybody participated in pretending that Derrick Whiting was alive when he left Nissan. He was not. My daughter made it to Nissan before Derrick was rolled out the doors of that plant. She said when she got there, the doors swung open. They rolled my brother out, and they were doing nothing. There was nothing on him to show that there was any life. There was nothing on him, nothing at all, and nobody was working on him. And we both know that is not the case. If you are alive, you're going to have something going on. The EMTs are going to be doing something.
Yeah, oxygen
The
mask.
only thing they hadn't done was cover him up with the sheet. And then when they recognized a family member had made it there before the ambulance left the site, then somebody told her, well, I don't think you can follow an ambulance. Really? You better get in behind that ambulance, girl, and go on down that road with Derrick in it. And that's what she did. To have the audacity to tell her, I don't think you can follow an ambulance. She followed the ambulance, thinking that her brother is still alive because she's younger than him. She was younger than him. She's thinking he's still alive. And when the doctor comes to the waiting room to let her know that Derrick didn't make it, my daughter's on the phone with me. And then she told him, wait a minute, I got my mama on the phone. And then the crazy doctor says, let me speak to her. He don't know that I'm driving down the road. He ain't asked what she doing or nothing. She hands him the phone because she can hear him. She's sitting there, and I can hear him, of course, because he's on the phone. And he tells me, I am sorry to tell you, but Derrick did not make it. Everybody was haphazard. They know how to do their job. What doctor does, they said, just give me the phone and don't know where I'm at or what I'm doing. Especially when you're finna give out the information that my only son is dead. But I kept driving. That's why I say, I know there is a God. Jesus is my Savior. And I just kept driving till I got to Merit Health. Was the name of the hospital at that time. Till I got there. And the doctor there on site went through the procedures. Yes. The doctor went through his procedures. And then he, of course, was the one that pronounced Derrick deceased.
Well, Miss Hazel, I'm so sorry that this tragedy had to happen. But you're shedding such a light on something that's so important for the people that's in the workplace right now, because you can go to work, you can plan to go to work 8 to 5 o'clock, and there's no guarantees that you're going to come out of there and come back home to your family. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to tell us about your loss. You're so strong. Just listening to you, Miss Hazel, I am so honored to be in your presence. Thank you so much for shedding the light on something that we really, really need, and the youth really need to know, especially the kids who are going into the workforce, going into these factories, not getting the training that they need. And like you said, they need to know their rights and need to know the procedures. Don't just get on the machine, don't know how to work it, and just take it and just stay there. No, you ask questions. You say, look, I'm not trained on this. Can somebody help me, train me? Because you're trying to make it home to your family just like they are. Thank you so much once again for taking the time out of your day to give us such rich information. Thank you for this conversation. Thank you. I will now turn this back over to Jaribu for the closing remarks.
Well. Powerful is just not the word. We have to find another word for what we just heard, for what we just experienced. It goes way beyond the word powerful, straight to words that we can't even put in our mouths right now. Thank you, Miss Whiting. Thank you for the story. Thank you for the heart. Thank you for the truth that we have experienced today. We know that Derrick Whiting's death will not ever be in vain. We will never rest until all of those responsible for killing us while we try to make a living, we will not rest until they are exposed. I just got an alert while I was sitting here listening to this rich conversation about how just the other day a man died at Amazon in Oregon. Workers tried to help him and were told to go back to work. This callous disregard for human life is what we are faced with every single day. And as Latasha said, you can go to work thinking when you clock out that you're going to make it home, and many, many workers do not make it home. You stood up to the system. You exposed Nissan's callous disregard. You are a champion. You are a truth teller. You are somebody we are so glad that we know. And to you, Latasha, thank you for guiding this conversation. Thank you for your leadership in this effort. Thank you for your passion, young woman. We appreciate you as well. We are not big-time capitalists with all kinds of billions of dollars. We are just grassroots organizers and people who believe in justice and fairness and believe you should not have to trade your dignity for a paycheck. And so if you want more, that was just a taste. That was just a taste. That might have been your dessert. That could have been the banana pudding, but you didn't get the fried chicken. You didn't get the potato salad. You didn't get the cornbread. If you want more of what you heard today, then you got to meet me in Jackson on Saturday, April 25th. At 11 a.m., we'll be at the state capitol. You will hear the powerful voice once again of Hazel Whiting. You will hear the powerful voice of our other guest who we're bringing to the mic eventually, Wallace Jackson Jr., who will tell his story about his dad who was murdered in the plant because he refused to step down from a promotion that had historically been given to a white man, and the Klan placed a bomb under his vehicle in Natchez, Mississippi on February 27th, 1967. You'll hear from Wallace on stage at the Workers' Memorial Day. You will hear from our powerful board president, representative. You will hear from Ricky Thompson, who will bring you greetings and tell you about what we're planning for the 30th anniversary. You're going to hear from so many folks that day, and you yourselves are welcome to come. Come and celebrate the lives of workers who didn't make it home. Come and celebrate the legacy of fighting back and standing up like Miss Whiting, who is in the tradition of Fannie Lou Hamer, who was a sharecropper, who fought against the sharecropping conditions and the oppression of our people. Ida B. Wells and other great Black women, you remind us of them. Hazel Whiting, thank you so much for your story. Please meet us on Saturday, April 25th, as we celebrate Workers' Memorial Day, as we remember out loud, no one should have to die to make a living. You can listen again to the podcast. Once you click on our website, it'll be up in a few days. You can share it with everyone, the story of Hazel Whiting, the story of the justice that she sought and some justice that she was able to get by being brave and standing up tall and pushing through her grief to get justice for Derrick Whiting. Can we say his name, Derrick Whiting? Don't forget him. Don't forget Derrick Whiting and all those who died while trying to make a living. On behalf of the Mississippi Workers Center for Human Rights, our board of directors, and all those who are under the sound of my voice today, thank you for listening and being with us for 30 years strong this coming December. And you'll hear more about that as we podcast you into the 30-year celebration. We're going to podcast you in every month. We're going to be telling you, get ready to be at the Jackson State University for our celebration. There is none like it, none like the Mississippi Workers Center for Human Rights. So proud to be the captainess of that ship for all these years, and so ready now to look toward young leadership coming behind us and beside us. So take care. We'll see you next time. And remember, no one should have to die to make a living.
When we think about these women who stood up